Oh, hello. Hi everyone. Female Frodo Baggins here. And I have now consumed 6 hours of the IronHeart show. The show that Marvel buried. The show that they wanted to get out as quickly as possible. Although now I think I know why they didn't do all the episodes at once. Okay, so last week there was an uproarious defense of this show on Twitter that I didn't expect to see. I thought that no one cared other than YouTubers dogging on it or something. I thought no one actually cared, but there was a defense of this show that declared that all of the people hating on this show and character were merely racists. And under my video itself, got a lot of people screaming at me, talking about, I'm just biased, this character, Tony Stark was a narcissist too, you just aren't accepting that she's gonna go on a character arc and do better. That's a funny thing to say. But, there were crazy things, like, somebody said, like, this show has, like, an 85% on Rotten Tomatoes now after, some more people reviewed it. That is absurd. If you think that this show, after the finale, is not that bad, or is salvageable, or is pretty good, I have lost all respect for you as a critic. In fact, there was a person saying that the only reason why it wasn't 95% is because of the racists. And I'm like, actually, I think the only reason why the percentage is as high as it is because people don't want to get called names. And some people didn't even bother to review the show. Like, it is, but after everything, after the defense of this show, and the representation of this show that I saw go on last week, it's so absurd. It's so nonsensical. And I noticed this week, though, all of that defense was gone. I didn't see any sort of defense like that. I didn't even see people talking about this show. It didn't trend once. And with good reason, because my review saying that Riri Williams Ironheart, which I don't know why she's called Ironheart, is the worst person in the Marvel Universe, that title has aged incredibly well. This show, because of the finale of this show, is the worst thing Marvel Studios has ever put out. Yes. And I've seen almost everything Marvel Studios has ever put out. Yes. It is worse than She-Hulk. Yes. It is worse than Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Yes. It is worse than Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. Brave New World. All of that. This is the worst thing Marvel Studios has ever put out. To the point where I thought to myself last night, now that they've gotten their obligations to just put it out there, they need to just take it off of Disney Plus and pretend that it never happened. So without further delay of the intro, there's something you need to know about the Marvel Universe going into this show. And maybe if I was to give some critics that weren't as harsh on this show some leeway, maybe they're not aware of this. There is a character in comics named Mephisto, right? Mephisto, you have to understand, he is the devil of the Marvel Universe. He is the Satan of the Marvel Universe. That is why, if you've ever heard of the story Spider-Man One More Day, the reason why that was so controversial is Spider-Man made a deal with Mephisto to end his 20-year marriage to bring back his dead aunt. Spider-Man, the character all about responsibility, made a deal with the devil. That was the huge controversy over that comic. So you have to understand who Mephisto is and how it ties into the ending of the show. But, we were saying last week, I was saying, is this show condemning Riri Williams' actions. Because, okay, recap for anyone who wasn't watching. IronHeart, the show, is about Riri Williams, who is this person who's just super, super ingenious. And she knows that. And she wants to build an Iron Man suit better than Tony Stark's. And she pushes on, and she got a scholarship to MIT when she was just a teenager, but she hasn't graduated after 4 years because she's soaking up grant money to fund her projects, if that's even possible. She commits academic fraud, even though the show refers to it as plagiarism. It's academic fraud to sell completed work to other students to get money from them to fund her designs, and it winds up getting her expelled from MIT. So Ironheart is this character who constantly is talking about money and how she needs to fix the Iron Man suit to make it better for some reason. Her explanation for this changes throughout the series. For the first 2 episodes, she says it's because she can. It's because she needs to get respect. They'll have no choice but to respect her if she has to do this. And episode 3, it made it start to sound like it was because her father loved Tony Stark, which doesn't make a lot of sense. So motivations change. But in short, she turned to crime in order to get all the money she wants in order to fund these Iron Man suits. And it was a question of, does the show condemn her enough? Is this a cautionary tale? Or is this going to be an arc for a character who loses their way and becomes a hero? Well, in episode 3, it seemed that there were signs of that happening. But then we get into these last 3 episodes. Where we left off is Riri allowed one of her teammates who was attacking her to suffocate. So she killed somebody, arguably in self-defense. And now she's upset about that, but the guy who's running the gang, the Hood, who has some mystical power, and who knows that Riri has done this thing because Mephisto, who's the big bad of this show behind the scenes, showed him, he's on her tail, and she knows it's only a matter of time before he catches her. So this episode 4 is all about Ironheart kind of coming into terms of, am I a good person or not? And trying to figure out like where this mystical cloak that the Hood is wearing is coming from. She hears it's from a demonic dimension. People are really scared, setting up Mephisto. And it's really a dull episode to me. Like, it was really long, and I felt like it was very slow because it's like the Hood knows that Riri has done this, but for whatever reason, he waits until the end of the episode to tell everyone else, and he scowls at Riri for the rest of it up to that point. I'm like, why didn't you just act right away? I don't get it. So, meanwhile, Ezekiel Stain, who is a character who Riri got together with in the previous episodes, who is the son of Obadiah Stain, his tech that he stole was found. Riri left it behind, and so he's in jail now because of Riri. And he lays out some truths about who she is.
You're just a selfish kid who can't take any responsibility for herself. You lie, you cheat, you manipulate, you'll do anything you can to save yourself, even if that means hurting other people in the process.
Yes, that is exactly who Riri Williams is, and I wish that the show kept with that, but the show is very odd when it comes to the morality of Riri Williams, because it's not entirely condoning her, but it's not condemning her either. Like, that's the whole conversation of episode 4, that she talks to Xavier, who's sort of a burgeoning love interest in this show, and she asks him, am I a good person? And he pauses and he kind of sidesteps the question and says, what is good and bad? What does that mean? That's all depending on the person who's telling it to you.
So do you think I'm a good person?
Good, bad, the words don't really mean anything. So, depending on who's labeling you.
And he says, you're like Spock. You're just super smart. And I'm like, that's your big, answer to the moral question of, is Riri Williams good or not?
I say you're a smart person, a hardworking person, a protective person. I think underneath all that armor is a soft heart. So with all that you are is good, really a label you need?
Answer, no, she is a bad person. She is a horrible person. And can she change? Yes, but you should acknowledge that first. Like, she has never portrayed herself as a good person at all in this show. And, work up from there. So that is episode 4, and it's very long. By the end of the episode, and there's one more thing about this show you have to know, and it's crucial to the end. there's been this AI who is based off of Riri's dead best friend, Natalie. So she accidentally created this AI with a scan of her brain that is like a perfect replica of her best friend, her dead best friend. And it's really rushed because in the previous episodes, it made it seem like Riri was still uncomfortable being around this AI. But now it makes it out that Natalie is like her lifeline and she loves to have her around and she makes her feel better. And she doesn't want to get rid of her. And Xavier, who is the brother of Natalie, thinks that it's horrifying and unethical for her to be doing this. And that's how episode 4 ends. So episode 5 is the longest episode in the entire series. I felt like I was watching this thing forever. But I need to jump ahead, and I know that I'm going to ramble, but there's a lot of weird editing choices in this show. For example, episode 4 ends with Riri in panic mode because she doesn't know how to defeat the magic of the hood. And she's hyperventilating. And then episode 5 opens up with her talking to Zelma, who's the person she's talking to get advice on magic on. And Zelma's warning her about all this, but Riri is super confident and cocky about how she's going to handle it. And it's like, but in the last episode, you were in a panic that you couldn't handle this. So it's at multiple times in the show, I felt like maybe there were completely different edits of this show, and they both got mashed together. Now, I'm going to jump ahead again. The character of Ezekiel Stain in this show, his motivations change every single scene I see him in. When we first meet him, we hear that he steals stuff off the black market because he wants to feel close to his dad, who we find out was Obadiah Stane. Later, we find out that he hates his dad and doesn't want to be anything like him and keeps his ashes in a little baggie in his house or something like that. But he doesn't want to be anything like his dad. That's what he said. Then, when he goes to jail and he gets freed by the hood, they offer him, like, we can power you up to fight Riri and become super, like, godlike and powerful, and he agrees to that, and I'm like, I thought you didn't want to become like your dad. And then he fights Riri, and this is the scene that comes next in episode 5. There is a long scene that takes place in a White Castle. Riri is in this White Castle, and the gang, coming to get revenge on killing the other guy, comes in, and they just come in there and say, everybody out, and hit someone on the face. And of course, everyone in that White Castle, the employees, the management, everyone just runs away, never to be heard from again, so that they can confront Riri. So there is a whole battle in this show that takes place in a White Castle, with Riri hiding in a White Castle and needing to make makeshift weapons in a White Castle, and she makes this cannon, and Gorn's one of the characters at one point. But yeah, it's this whole crazy battle in a White Castle, and the way that she defeats the other characters is crazy. One that she puts one of her inventions, which is like a shield, and she traps them in it, and she rolls them away. But yeah, it's this whole weird fight where they decide that it was going to take place in a White Castle. But anyway, she defeats all of them, and there's just this, because there's this character named Slug, and who's supposed to be like a drag queen, and when this is the first acting role that this person has ever had, and the acting in this show is terrible, but especially when she has to fight Slug, the acting right here is just laughable. But anyway, I got off on a tangent there. Back to Zeke. He comes all powered up, and he's gonna kill Riri, and he's like, embrace this terrible power now. And I'm like, didn't you not want to be your dad? And then he lets her go, and it's like, okay, maybe he didn't want to be this way. But then later, going into the next episodes, then he doesn't want to be a guy who is going after Riri or fighting, and he's lying to protect her. And then it claims that everything he's doing is under the mind control of the hood. But then later, Riri, she fights him in the final episode, and the way she defeats him is she says, I have to knee you in the groin to break off the mind control, which makes no sense. I'm like, why would you have to knee this guy in the groin in order to break the mind control? And it's like, did they just want, because Zeke, he's played by the guy who played Han Solo in the Solo movie. He is giving an awful performance in this show. In fact, I think a lot of the acting in this show is really bad. I do think that a lot of this show comes to, like, Dominique Thorne, I do not think that her performance works. I think that she makes Ironheart even more psychopathic. But this guy, Zeke Stain, played by former Han Solo, he's given a really bad performance, but he's very effeminate, character, and, a pushover. And so when it got to that point, she's like, I'm gonna have to defeat you by kneeing you in the groin. It's like, you guys just wanted to knee the effeminate white guy in the groin, right? That you just wanted to use this guy to humiliate him. But he comes out of it finally, and he's like, and he tells Riri at that point, because she's gonna fight the villain, okay, you go ahead, but we're not done. I'm gonna get revenge on you after the end of this. I'm like, he's gonna get revenge on her at the end of this. Like, what is this guy's motivations? Every time I see him, it's a different thing. He doesn't want any part of this. He wants to become a godlike villain, and he's embraced that. No, he wants to let Riri go. No, he doesn't care about Riri, and he wants revenge because she thinks he's an awful person. This is a character that just changes in every scene, and that's how I feel like with a lot of the editing of this show is I don't know how it wants me to take a lot of this stuff. I know I jumped ahead there, but I had to bring it up, like just the editing of this show. It's like, I don't know how to take it. But yeah, there in episode 5, there's the embarrassing White Castle fight. And after that, it seems that Ironheart, Riri Williams, after treating everyone terribly, after really treating her mom and trashing her terribly, she finally comes clean with what she's been doing. So thank goodness, I guess, I assumed at the time, is she finally taking accountability and trying to change? Well, I would say yes and no at this point in episode 5, because it seemed like, yeah, they're admitting that what she did was wrong, but they're also not really pushing back against it enough, because her mom just says, I'm glad you're safe. And then they go on a journey of self-discovery to, like, rediscover her mind. Like, she never properly dealt with the trauma of her stepdad and her best friend being shot. And so then they have to go on a self-discovery journey of who she was before and what she could create. And what we hear from Riri is yet another explanation of why she is so obsessed with the Iron Man suit and why she's done all these awful things, lying, stealing, crime, something that where she had to kill somebody. But so she says that now, after all this, after all these various explanations that she's given throughout the show, which once again, I wonder if is just a flaw in the editing, she says that she needs to keep creating the best Iron Man suit because she needs to protect the people she cares about after what happened with Natalie and her stepdad. So it's like, okay, this is yet another retconned explanation of why she's doing all of this, and I'm not sure that it all adds up with what we've seen in the past, because you would get in with some dangerous people who were doing all these things because you want to protect your family from crime. Her mind seems pretty warped, but it's like, okay, now we have a motivation for her that doesn't seem completely selfish and that doesn't seem to come from a completely negative space. So then the tone of the show takes a drastic turn, because up to this point, it's been a pretty dark show and it's dealt with some pretty dark stuff. Now it just becomes Riri, after her mom chastises her for being so obsessed with the suit. Her explanation for what she has to do going forward is to build a suit, because she says she has to protect them from the Hood. But it's like, the Hood hasn't threatened her family or anyone. He is only after her for revenge for his friend dying. But it's like, okay. And then so everyone gets on board with helping Riri create a new suit so that she can defeat the Hood. And she claims that the only way she believes she is going to be able to defeat the Hood is by making her suit fused with magic, because she thinks that the only way to defeat this dark magic is with more magic. So then in like episode 5 is so long. It's like stuff just kept happening and happening and happening. Like they had a lot of stuff that they didn't know what to do with, so they just shoved it into episode 5. But long story short, so it seems like Riri might be coming out of it now. She's not a hero by any sense of the word. She's still incredibly selfish, and she's done a lot of things for selfish reasons. But it seems like she's turning away from being a criminal and being honest with her family again and connecting with them again. It seems like maybe that's what they're doing. She, of course, hasn't faced any legal consequences for what she's done or come clean on that. It almost seems like the show was absolving her too much, because even Xavier, who had a big problem with the Natalie AI, comes in, has a flirtatious moment with her, and is like, I don't agree with the Natalie AI, but it's okay. You just do what you want to do with it. And Riri says that she needs the Natalie AI because she finally makes her feel normal again, which is an important thing here. So it seemed at this point that it was absolving Riri way too much, and it was becoming a way more lighthearted show in contrast to everything else. But it's like, okay, have we gotten a redemption here? Well, not so fast, because then we get to episode 6, leading into episode 6, which is the single worst thing that Marvel has ever put out. At the end of episode 5, they finally infuse Riri's new suit with the magic. But through no way that I understand, it's like just the magic and the AI of Natalie overwhelms each other, and the magic in the suit overwhelms the Natalie AI and kills her. So the Natalie AI dies at the end of episode 5. So when we get to episode 6, the motivations of Riri change yet again. Now she wants to go after the Hood, not because of protecting her family, but now she says that she wants to go after the Hood because she needs to get a hold of that magic. She says the magic that took Natalie away, because maybe that magic could bring her back. So now, after Riri seemed like she was going on a redemption arc, and maybe it was absolving her a little too much, but she was starting to come out of it and starting to work with her family and not do everything for completely selfish reasons anymore, now she's gone right back to that. Now she's gone right back to, I need to do this to get what I want and what's going to make me feel good. She's gone right back to that. And what happens is that IronHeart is going to go and fight the Hood, right? And we finally get introduced to Mephisto in these episodes and find out the deal that he made with the Hood to give him his power to get whatever he wanted. What we find out in the beginning of this episode is Mephisto is not liking the Hood so much. This guy is annoying him, and he says he wants to find an agent for himself that is quote-unquote better, and that he has his eye on a candidate. And, and remember, Mephisto is the devil of this universe. Now, episode 6 is surprisingly the shortest one in this entire series, so it's very simple to get through. But basically, what you need to know is that Riri comes and she fights the Hood, and she is able to get his hood off of him and take away his magic and win. And so she's done all that, and she's won. And I don't understand exactly why, but she gets into an elevator and goes up to the top floor of this mansion that they're in. And there is Mephisto, and he's in there with, in the same place that he was in the beginning when we saw him make the deal with the Hood. He's in a diner, he's got the food laid out for her, and he wants to talk to her. What happens in the show is that Riri Williams sits down with him and goes into a long talk with him, similar to what he did with the other guy, where he's telling her everything she wants to hear. She's telling her everything she wants to hear about how she's been put down her entire life by all of this stuff. And it flashes back to MIT, which, by the way, she was not being put down. She was putting herself down with what she was doing. And all these times where she feels like she's failed. And it's like, Riri never failed. She was the victim of her own demise doing all of this stuff. But Mephisto is telling her everything she wants to hear. And he tells her that he can give her anything she wants. And, because he says that the pain that you have is never going to go away from the death of her best friend and stepdad. So basically, he lays it out, cards on the table, he says, for Riri Williams to get whatever she wants back. What does Riri Williams want the most? She wants Natalie back. And so what happens in this long, creepy sequence with Mephisto is that, and he says this to both the Hood and Riri. They ask him, what is in it for you in return? And he says, something small, you'll never miss it. And the implication there is, of course, he takes their soul. So, but then we get this, it's a very long, drawn-out sequence where it cuts back to the present and it cuts back to Riri talking to Mephisto. And it reveals very slowly to the audience that in the end, she said yes. She agreed. She sold her soul to Mephisto in order for Natalie to come back to life. Because it flashes back to the present as she's talking to Mephisto. She's in her lab. Natalie shows up. She thinks it's her AI, but no, Natalie's real. She's supposedly been brought back from the dead. Flashes back to her making the deal with Mephisto. Cut to black. That is the end. Ironheart makes a deal with the devil to get what she wants in the end. Now, you might be saying, now, if this is a cautionary tale, why is that a problem? It would not be a problem at all if this was a cautionary tale. The problem with this entire show, as I watched it, is it does not make it clear that this is necessarily a bad thing that Riri is doing. Like, it doesn't make it clear if we're meant to take Ironheart as a completely in the wrong, or if we are supposed to take her, like, that's the thing. I don't know what I'm supposed to take from this, because this show really made it seem, like, through episode 4 and 5, that Riri was not as bad as we thought she was. She had a heart of gold. There is a line in episode 5 that, just because Xavier referred to Riri Williams as like Spock, and he did a play on words, they did a play on words where she was referring to Natalie as, of all the souls I've ever encountered, hers was the most human, and Xavier puts that back to Riri. So they're also like saying that she has a heart of gold at the end of the day, and building up that's the core of her. Like, these past 2 episodes have really been walking back and trying to build up, like, Ironheart has a heart of gold, and that's at her core, and that, maybe you can't call her good, but that's what is at her core. I guess that's what they're saying. And Xavier said it, like, why do you need good and bad labels when you got all that Riri Williams is? And so when we get to the final episode, it's like, how am I supposed to take that? It just shows that happening. It's like, am I supposed to take this as a character being redeemed? Certainly not. She's making a deal with the devil. She is doing the exact same thing that she did in the entire show. And that's the worst thing about it, is this is perfectly in character for her to make a decision like this, because everything that Riri does is for herself. She does not care about Natalie. She does not care about Natalie's memory. The only reason she wants Natalie back is because it makes herself feel better. And she didn't care about anything else beyond that. So I can't see this as a redemption. She does the exact same thing throughout the entire show, where it's like, there is nothing wrong. There is no temptation that she will reject if she gets what she wants. But is this a cautionary tale? I also can't say that because of the communication of this show. I mean, just look at how it was advertised. Great hero from the comics, but she does nothing heroic whatsoever in this show.
When Ironheart came out, I remember the buzz around the industry. I was really excited.
It's really about her proving herself and achieving her own legacy.
Anyway, I don't want to step on your interview. Long story short, Iron Man loves Ironheart.
With your once-in-a-generation mind and my skills, capable of building something iconic.
This great hero from the comics, and having Robert Downey Jr. say Iron Man loves Ironheart, even though this character is ultimately completely against everything he stood for. So, if you were going to make a cautionary tale about a narcissistic person who didn't take care of their personal trauma, who fell into temptation at every turn and wanted more and more power to make themselves feel better and make it feel like they were in control of everything, and that this is the end result, they get what they want, but now they are an agent of the devil, then that would have been a fine cautionary tale. But the problem is, and what I've been saying throughout this entire review, the editing, which seems to like switch character motivations on a dime and give me mixed messaging throughout this entire show, it doesn't make it clear if they're condemning this or not. I don't understand. Like, there will not be a season 2 of this show. I wouldn't be surprised if we never see this character again, because Disney seems to have no faith in this and they tried to bury it. But it's like, that's how your show ends? You made it seem like this character was going to go on a redemption arc, and then at the end, you made her do the same thing, make a deal with the devil to bring back someone from the dead, and sell her soul to him, and then cut to black. That is the end of the show. Like, this show was being advertised as just like some sort of great homage to Chicago and the culture around there. And of course, Ironheart from the very beginning of her inception has been promoted as this great black female representation. And that's why there was defense going on for the show. And it's like, why would anyone want this to be their representation? A narcissistic, sociopathic character who, when she even got a little chance at redemption, wound up becoming consumed by the devil, essentially? And that's how it ends? Like, and this was not promoted as a cautionary tale. And it's like, the only way that you could have possibly made this work is to make it clear. If you were going to do this, you needed to make it clear. This is a bad thing. This is a warning for everyone to not become so consumed by what you want, because this is going to be the end point. It shows Riri at the end, has the scars growing on her. That is a sign that somebody has become possessed by Mephisto. But the music that plays at this time is ambiguous. It's not portraying it as strictly, dun dun dun, this is the big ending, she's corrupted, there's no hope for this character, she's gone too far, that's the end. No, this was supposed to be a cliffhanger of a continuous story, but this is going to be the ending that we get for her. And it's just like, why would you want this character, why would you want this show to end like that? And why would anyone want this character? This is just horrible representation for anyone, no matter who Riri was supposed to, who she was a representation of. These characteristics that she has, it's just horrible. And it's offensive on that level. Hey guys, here's a great new diverse character that we're going to promote. Oh, by the way, by the end, she sells her soul to the devil, and then we cut to black. And that's the end. And she never does a heroic thing. And we never completely condemn her either. We're still going to promote her as if she's like good representation or something. It's baffling. And I think that Marvel Studios knew this. And I think that the reason why the editing is so sporadic and why it seems like it doesn't know what it wants to say is I think that maybe there were reshoots, ADR edits, and things like that were maybe trying to soften the blow of the show. And that's what happened. And that's why it's so confusing. But it's like, these Marvel superheroes were supposed to stand for stuff that's good. They were supposed to be heroes. And yes, you can use this venue to explore evil characters and characters who go down a dark path and cautionary tales and all of that, but you need to be clear on that. And so it's like the show with your hero ends with her making a deal with the devil and becoming his agent, and that's the end. And so if you guys thought that I was being too harsh by saying that Riri Williams is the worst person in the Marvel Universe, she is. She is completely consumed by herself and her own desires, and she said yes to that deal at the end like it was nothing. And that is the ending point of this show, and it completely goes against everything that Marvel characters were supposed to be about, and it is just like the worst thing I've seen from Disney in general. Like, how do you put that thing out there and just end it like that? And so I can't believe all of you people, like the reason why people knew that this was going to go this way, and this has taken the character from the comics and gone above and beyond people's criticisms with her and her being a sociopath. Like, this has vindicated anyone who complained about this character, but it's like we knew that this character was going to go in a bad direction because that's what we had seen before. And behind Riri Williams and the creation is a narcissism behind the people because they never accepted any criticism for how she was written. Once again, I don't know if they thought, let's end it like this to just, agree with people. Like, yeah, she is an awful person. But then why would you advertise her as like this really awesome character and hero in the advertising? Like, The Penguin was a show about an evil character and it was clearly advertised like that. That's not how this show was advertised. So that is why it is the worst thing that Marvel Studios has ever made not just because of the bad editing, the bad acting, and the confusingness of it, not just because it doesn't seem to understand, the semantics, like selling off completed assignments would be academic fraud, not plagiarism. Characters who extort and force people to sign contracts, the contracts would be null and void if that happened. Not just because of all of that, but because they end the show with the hero making a deal with the devil to get what she wants. And now she's corrupted by him. And it does not make it clear if it wants us to take that as a solely bad thing or not, because it doesn't seem to accept that Riri is a bad person. She is completely a bad person, and it doesn't want to completely accept that. It wants to still argue that she has a heart of gold. That's why it's the worst thing that Marvel Studios has put out. And I'm sure we're going to be done with it after this, but I do think it's funny that all the people who were defending this show, have shut up after these episodes have come out, because it's like, do you really want to defend the ending of this show that was the supposed positive representation, selling her soul to the devil and then being done with it? Is that what you really want to promote? And guys, there are a ton of great characters out there, great heroes, great diverse heroes that show a lot of better characteristics than Riri Williams. And this character should just be left in the dust after this. But wow. Totally vindicated on Ironheart being the worst person of the Marvel Universe. But this show will be an interesting case study in the future. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you all for watching. Thank you for bearing with me as I am rambling. What do you think about this show? Did you watch even a second of it? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to support my work on the channel, you can consider becoming a patron or a member. Thank you so much, and I will see you guys next time.